Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I will be reviewing Styx live in concert at the Jiffy Lube Live Amphitheater in Bristow, Virginia on July 12th, 2025. This year's Styx tour has been dubbed the Brotherhood of Rock tour, where they are co-headlining with Kevin Cronin Band and special guest Don Felder. So my wife and I both really wanted to see all of Don Felder's opening set because he was just so damn good when we last saw him a few years ago. So we strategically planned our arrival to the venue after the gates had already opened. The line should be minimal, and we should be able to walk right in just before the start of his set. If life only worked out that way, right? Apparently, the scattered thunderstorms in the area that afternoon hit the venue right when the gates normally would have opened, about an hour before we arrived. So it took about half an hour in the pouring rain to finally get through the gates and to our seats. Unfortunately, Felder started right on time though, so he was already 3 songs into his set playing the long run by the time we sat down. We had some great seats though in the back of the closest seating section, near the middle, and the first thing I noticed was just how great Felder's sound mix was. Often the opening band gets a pretty mediocre mix and is not as loud as the headliners, but this was not the case here, and I think his set actually sounded better than both Cronin and Styx this night. At 77 years old, Felder looked larger than life up there, dressed in a badass white leather suit, and brushing off the fact that it was still 90 degrees out and about 90% humidity. More impressive was how solid his guitar playing and vocals still are at his age, offering faithful renditions of Eagles hits like Heartache Tonight and Life in a Fast Lane, before finally strapping on his famous white Gibson double neck guitar to close out his set with a killer performance of Hotel California. Felder played both of the song's iconic guitar solos, which he originally traded off with Joe Walsh, and much to my delight, he played them note for note and perfectly. Felder's backing band this tour featured Derek Frank on bass, Seth Rosh on drums, Ben Morrow on guitar, and Peter Dyer on keyboards, and they sounded extraordinary both instrumentally and especially the 5-part harmonies on Seven Bridges Road and other Eagles classics. The appreciative crowd, who had already nearly filled the seating area by this point, gave them a much-deserved standing ovation. Felder's 10-song set list is shown here. So REO Speedwagon, the Kevin Cronin Band, hit the stage next after a short break and tore right into their 10 times platinum, 15 weeks at number 1, 1980 album High Infidelity. So if you know who Kevin Cronin is, then you likely know that he has been the lead singer of REO Speedwagon since 1972 and has been touring with them regularly ever since. So why was he calling this the Kevin Cronin Band instead of REO Speedwagon on this tour? The short version is that he was outvoted by the 2 other owners of the band's name, Bruce Hall and Neil Doty, regarding the band's future and direction of the use of the name. So he said screw that and hit the road with the same band he has been touring with as REO Speedwagon since 2023 and called it the Kevin Cronin Band. The rest of the band includes Dave Amato on guitar, Brian Hitt on drums, Derek Hyland on keyboards, and Matt Bissonette on bass. Both Amato and Hitt have been touring with REO since 1989. That's 36 years. Cronin and band performed High Infidelity in its entirety from start to finish, and the large crowd of what appeared to be mostly 50 and 60-something-year-olds really ate that shit up. I was never a huge fan of High Infidelity album as it came out during my freshman year in high school, around the same time that 2 of my favorite albums of all time came out, Back in Black by AC/DC and Moving Pictures by Rush. I was a much bigger fan of REO's previous few albums though, especially their smokin' 1977 live album, Live You Get What You Play For. Fortunately for us, REO always hits that period pretty hard in concert, And this show was no different as they tore through standout tracks like Time for Me to Fly, Riding the Storm Out, and Roll with the Changes like it was 77 again. Kevin Cronin was 73 here, and his voice is understandably a lot weaker now. He does still perform with a lot of energy and enthusiasm, though, and seems to really appreciate his fans, too. I've seen REO Speedwagon several times over the last couple of decades, and their stage show has never really been anything to write home about. The audio mix did sound pretty good, but there was nothing much going on stage, and the light show was fairly minimal. All three bands relied on a massive high-definition LED screen that took up almost the entire backdrop of the stage. Cronin's set was certainly solid, and the fans who came to see them, primarily like the couple standing in front of us the entire set, were not disappointed. I just don't think I'll ever really need to really see REO Speedwagon live again. The 15-song Kevin Cronin set list is shown here. So Styx hit the stage at about 9:30 and kicked off the proceedings in the same way they did on their last Grand Illusion in its entirety tour of 2012, which can be seen on their excellent The Grand Illusion of Pieces of Eight live concert Blu-ray, which I have also reviewed on this channel. Check it out. The video screen shows a young boy in his bedroom wearing a Styx t-shirt and flipping through a stack of classic rock albums. He eventually pulls out The Grand Illusion, carefully removes it from the sleeve, places it on his turntable, and drops the needle as the crowd erupts and the band launches into the opening track, The Grand Illusion. I first discovered Styx through the Grand Illusion album back in middle school when I was just beginning to fall under the spell of rock and roll music, and it has remained one of my all-time favorite albums to this day. Styx deliver another mesmerizing performance of this progressive rock masterpiece, and this time with the help of a couple of new band members. Will Evankovich co-wrote and produced the last three new Styx albums and has been touring with them since 2019, where they performed the Mission album in its entirety on that tour. His main role now is pretty much taking over some of the lead guitar duties from James J.Y. Young, who is 75 years old now, and has admitted that he is no longer really up to the task of playing a lot of the older blazing guitar solos that he used to just effortlessly rip through in his younger days. I did notice some unusual sloppiness in a few of the solos that he did attempt, but I'm sure that the other 97% of the crowd who are non-guitarists didn't notice a thing. The few times I cringed and asked my wife, "Did you hear that?" during parts of JY and Tommy's solo, she just looked at me annoyed and said, "What the hell are you talking about?" Yeah, Tommy Shaw is also 71 years old now, but the guy looks, sings, and plays exactly like he did a decade ago. Amazing. The other new band member for this tour was Lawrence Gowan's younger brother Terry on bass, as well as longtime Styx drummer extraordinaire Todd Zuckerman. Founding member and bassist Chuck Panozzo also came out to play in a few different songs, which he's pretty much been doing since he retired from full-time touring back in 1999 due to health reasons. Side 1 of The Grand Illusion ranks up there with the best rock album sides of all time, in my opinion, with The Grand Illusion, Fooling Yourself, The Angry Young Man, Superstars, and Come Sail Away. It's sure made for a thrilling way to start a concert, I'll tell you that much. But side 2 is a much heavier and darker slice of progressive rock deep cuts that had me grinning from ear to ear. Lawrence Gowan was rock solid as usual, and his keyboard work on Castle Wall sounded ominous. JY also did an admirable job with the lead vocals and killer guitar riffage on his signature song, Miss America. A few songs in the Styx' set, I noticed that their sound mix didn't sound particularly great to my ears, especially compared to Felder's and Cronin's. The bass frequencies really dominated the mix and were slightly muddy sounding, and the overall mix just lacked some of the clarity of the previous two sets. It wasn't terrible by any means, just not great. The stage show, on the other hand, looked awesome. I always thought that the previous couple of Styx tours and concert videos looked a bit too generic and kind of bland, but this one looked like they actually used some of Rush's old lighting rigs, which really enhanced the performance of the Grand Illusion set in particular. The second set hit Styx's Paradise Theater album pretty hard, with three of its best songs, Rockin' the Paradise, Too Much Time on My Hands, and The Best of Times. Mixed in between were excellent performances of the Dennis DeYoung power ballad Lady, which Gowan performed beautifully, and the first single, Build and Destroy, from their upcoming new album, Circling from Above. I give Styx a ton of credit for continuing to put out great new music and having the confidence to perform it on tour, unlike a lot of bands we know. Wink, wink. I was certainly surprised when, after having not released any new material since 2003's Cyclorama, they just go ahead and put out The Mission, a full-blown concept album at that, 14 years later in 2017. The positive critical and fan reception must have invigorated them, because they went on to release Crash of the Crown in 2021 and the new Circling from Above this year, and they are all very good albums too. After closing out the second set with, of course, Blue Collar Man, they would return for a rousing encore of Mr. Roboto, a song they had rarely included on their tour set list since the Kilroy tour. This was likely due to it being so associated with Dennis DeYoung and the tumultuous period before they, I'll just say, decided to carry on without him. Not my favorite Styx period, but the song certainly kicked ass live and the crowd really got into it. Renegade would, of course, close out the show, and it sounded particularly huge, having three guitarists in the band now. Such a legendary rock song. The 16-song Styx set list is shown here. So I was hesitant about attending this concert, as I am now with all of the bands I loved from childhood. We're still touring with band members now in their 70s and even 80s, for Christ's sakes. I've dreaded going to concerts only to see one of my music heroes no longer be able to really perform at a high level anymore. This is certainly understandable with vocalists who are primary victims of Father Time, but you're starting to see this a lot more with musicians too, especially in the metal genre, where the high-speed precision playing can be so physically and mentally demanding. This was unfortunately not the case at this concert, as these guys all delivered respectable and in most cases exceptional performances. And I drove home with a big, drunken, satisfied smile on my face as I cranked even more Styx on the car stereo. Alright, that's it for me today. Let me know your thoughts on the Styx Brotherhood of Rock tour if you've seen it in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more. Please also support this channel by using the Amazon Associates links in the description for some of the DVDs and CDs I mentioned in the review. Thanks, and catch you guys next time.